Well, a very good morning, and you're most welcome to this edition of the Topical Discussion. My name is Simon Kagwanjala. While the country is engrossed in conversations about the rifts within the opposition, political parties, and a number of issues happening within political parties in the country, there is a big elephant in the room that the country is not discussing, and that is the looming 2026 general election. The Electoral Commission last year released a roadmap indicating that elections will be held on the 12th of January, 2026. Just yesterday, they presented a bill to Parliament asking for over 1.1 trillion shillings to prepare for the 2026 general election. But while all this is happening, the big question that remains is, how prepared is the country? Could this be just another ritualistic election, more of the same, or an election like no other? We want to test the ground. We want to explore the look of things as we prepare for elections. And I'm joined by Captain Edward Francis Babu, a senior member of the National Resistance Movement, former minister, former legislator, together with Mr. Henry Muguzi, an elections expert from the campaign for electoral financing. Well, a very good morning, Captain Babu.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, our viewers, and thank you for having us after this great Easter.
Great.
And Easter, which is at the same time the Ramadan of the Muslims, which in my opinion is extremely interesting that they're all together. It's like an eclipse. So I congratulate all of them. I congratulate those who are in the Ramadan, who are continuing until next month.
Well,
and I congratulate you. Where did you go to church?
Rubaga as usual.
You went to Rubaga?
Yes.
Oh, that was very good of you. My only worry this week, you said some very good things. 2 days ago, I read in the newspaper about Uganda Revenue Authority not being able to collect money. Most of the companies have closed down. So they are now collecting money from I don't know.
Very interesting. Maybe that's a discussion for another day. A very good morning, Henry.
Very good morning to you, my brother Kagwanjala. Quite an honor for me to be here. It's quite the first time for me to appear here. And thank you for having me.
What do you find remarkable about the electoral landscape so far, ahead of 2026?
The electoral landscape for Uganda is always a work in progress. Earlier on, as we were opening the show, you asked the question whether it's going to be more of a ritual or more of the same or something significant coming through. I think elections in Uganda are quite an important event. We need to understand that Uganda is a post-conflict society. In a post-conflict society, elections mean more than democracy. Elections is an opportunity to renew peace and extend peace. Because short of that, then you go back down the path of violence. We don't want to go back there. So eventually, as you practice these elections, then they start to make sense. And then you start to develop a democratic culture and ethos that the country can live with. As it is now, we are still patching up, still work in progress. So you look around and I think from the date you mentioned, we have about 17, 18 months to the election. That would mean campaigns would start officially, I think, around in 15 months, 16. I think 15 months, 16 months.
By now there would be consultations.
Yeah, in the next 13, 14 months, political parties should already be going through primaries and so on. You don't see a lot of that happening. But when you look at the other side of government, I think you see that they're preparing. The party in power is already putting together its, party register. So there is activity ongoing. What is not clear is what is happening on the other side of the political divide. But yes, I think we look forward to an election as an event that will help us to nurture.
Yeah, but as someone who has critically observed elections in the past, normal around this time there is some bit of hype, there is some bit of heat. When you look at the mood currently, what does it speak to?
the mood is somber. The political parties in opposition, you cannot clearly touch what they are up to. In terms of preparedness, level of preparedness, you can say they are sleeping. But also that's not new, because I have observed elections in Uganda since 2006. And I saw that political parties have been going into elections since then. They have been sleepwalking into elections. And so that's what I am seeing today. The time they are spending in internal squabbles is a time lost. They are trying to challenge an entity that is so powerful that you need to have prepared for it over 5 years, which they haven't. In terms of the citizenry, I think it has not yet dawned on citizens that the next election is around the corner, but also, even if it did, the election does not seem to have translated and delivered goods to the ordinary electorate. So not many are looking forward to it. An election, by any measure, should be an opportunity to reward or punish leaders that have not served you. So if it's an opportunity to punish those that have not served by removing them, I'm not sure that rests a lot in the hands of the citizens. But also in terms of rewarding those that have served them well, they look around to who has served us best, who can reward by voting them back. I don't know what people are saying, but we would see more activity. We would have seen now an emergence, a beginning of the heat. The atmosphere should be already trying to heat up in terms of activities on the ground. You don't quite see that.
Captain Babu, how do you gauge the mood as 2026 looms? Is the country really looking up to this election?
When you remove the prophets of doom, we have a lot of prophets of doom in this country. The law is very clear. Every 5 years, we've got to have elections, whether you like it or you don't like it. Now, if you are talking about the constitutional requirement that there must be an election, the Electoral Commission must put up that election, that is there, whether you like it.
That's a given.
It's given. Whether it is done correctly or wrongly, the fact it is given. Now, it is important that we have it every 5 years. If they didn't have elections after 5 years, that's overthrowing the Constitution. Now, we must have a census, by the way. For the Electoral Commission to organize good elections, they must have the latest numbers of the population in each constituency. So census becomes first, and that census is so important because if a constituency is bigger than a certain number, it is divided. So all those kind of things have to come into play. Now, there are all sorts of things. I do not agree, and that you must within the Constitution. There's a time when people who are standing for elections are free to start canvassing for these, and I think it's a year before. It's not 2 years before, 3 years. I don't know why people think people should start years way before. No, I have this argument that during the CA, when we had something called the candidates meeting, we performed better than what we are performing now. So that's one point. Another point, that if there are mistakes, and there's bound to be, that the Electoral Commission has done this, and accusations left, right, because I've been hearing all sorts of accusations. The question is whether these accusations are only one-sided, whether it's Electoral Commission alone, or it includes the people who are involved in elections. Who is causing the problem? This word competition, when people are competing for offices, does it bring out some of our traits? Do we fight? Do we bribe? Do we tell lies? Do we use propaganda? All these things, we now have to speak the truth. Is it only the Electoral Commission that has a problem, or the people who are getting involved in the elections?
Has the country taken time to do a critical audit of the past mistakes and look at how to correct them?
The audits are there. They've even read them, but when they talk about the audits, people are not interested because the elections are over and the government is going on. They have audits. They do.
Who audits?
Oh, several people audit. Different NGOs audit. The Electoral Commission by itself also audits. The government also audits. They want this audit because they've got to know, one, security. They've got to know whether what they did last time was correct. They have this audit. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not, by the way, sitting here to propagate for any particular group. I am saying that there are certain problems during elections, and the audit you're talking about has brought some of them out. The questions, can we have a mindset change to improve them? Government itself has to improve itself, its people, its security. The people who are standing for elections must have a certain level of discipline. The Electoral Commission has to check if they have flaws within their system, and this is what we need to do now. Now, a lot of people I've been hearing, they use propaganda. I give you an example. People talk about independent Electoral Commission. I laugh about this because we have a country not very far from us. They had an independent Electoral Commission. They entertained us on television.
Electoral and boundaries.
Yes, Electoral Commission and boundaries. And they entertained us on television, interviewing members of that Electoral Commission. At the end of those elections, they said that the Electoral Commission was not independent. So how do you elect an independent Electoral Commission? Do we need to go to Almighty so they can elect it for us? How do we do it? So a lot of people have all this.
So it's delusional to imagine that there is an independent Electoral Commission.
Yes, it is. Because to me, until you can prove that somebody has done something wrong, really, the rigging of election is on all sides. All political class here do that. So you're not going to say, oh, the Electoral Commission allowed so-and-so. But we know who has been rigging. The question is, can we change? Can we have a mindset that we don't have to rig? And that comes out of discipline. And this is why I keep on saying that people have to be very careful. Multi-parties are having a lot of problem in this landscape you just talked about, electoral landscape. And what is happening, what is emerging, I was given figures that 51% last time during the elections were independents. So the parties had 49%. So if they don't look out, and I keep on saying this, the independents are going to come and stand, and the elections will become not acceptable to the people of this country.
Thank you. Henry, every election, every aftermath of an election leaves a very bad aftertaste. Take, for instance, the 2021 election, where there was lots of violence, lots of military presence, lots of intimidation and other things. Do you think the country is still digesting the unanswered question? And do you think there have been sufficient answers to this unanswered questions surrounding the quality of elections?
So the quality of elections of Uganda has been the subject of debate for quite some time. For every electoral commission that's appointed, this is an issue. And so there are quite a number of things that go into quality. It also includes the players that come together to play roles. One of those players is the military. I have taken time and interacted with the military to understand their thinking. And this is what I understood. That according to the military, election time is an opportunity to wrestle power away from their man. So, for them, whoever wants to wrestle power away from their man is Adui. And therefore, they have to do everything possible to make sure that their man stays. So, whereas many of us...
Who is their man?
The president that is in office.
I thought this is a national army.
But how did he come to power?
Okay.
So, it's the military that delivered him to power. And their responsibility is to make sure that their man is in power. So because of that, then they do everything, they meddle and perpetuate violence in a manner that they would deal with any enemy that is trying to wrestle power away from them. And so that leaves a bitter taste. But the other thing that leaves a bitter taste is the economy. And I cannot not speak about this, because every time we go through an election, the national GDP goes down, dips. And the reason this happens is because, first of all, we spend a lot of money on these elections. Right now, you have just pointed out that the Electoral Commission is seeking 1.1 trillion in budget to finance an election. at a time when Uganda, the economy is struggling, but also the too much money that goes into elections, the massive spending, the spending that happens pumps too much money into circulation to chase few goods that provokes inflationary tendencies, and therefore the economy suffers. So there are quite a number of things. The other thing that happens is the conflicts, between the parties that have lost, but also including domestic conflicts, because many families break down. The violence between candidates also leaves a bitter taste. I think as a country, we have not yet learned that democracy means much more than your leader, the leader you are supporting. That democracy means that this is the time we have to chart a path for the country. I think until we start seeing the bigger picture for the country called Uganda.
With all the indicators now at play, what kind of election will 2026 be?
So 2026 election is going to be an election that is going to have many candidates, because many people have lost out in business. The captain, Francis Babu, was telling you earlier, many companies have closed down. So we're going to see people that have failed in business coming into politics. You're going to see many interests either foreign or local, trying to make sure that their candidate goes through. So you are likely to see a very competitive election. And hey, we did the study, I think Captain kind of makes reference to, that presents, I think we had slightly, it was about 49%, no, not the other round, Captain, of independents.
No, 51.
But we expect
51.
those numbers
I have
to
got
grow.
it.
You've got it, okay?
Yeah.
So we expect those numbers to grow, okay? Because you would go to a constituency, and we had on average, at least every parliamentary constituency had 7 to 8 candidates on average. There are those that had 10 and so on, but on average 7 to 8. But all these, many of these, half of these would be independents. And therefore, we expect more independents to come through. We expect it to be more cutthroat. We expect more young people that are jobless today, that are going to be hired either to form militias or vigilante groups. So we expect violence. So we also expect an election which is going to be highly monetized, campaign that is going to be highly monetized, because the stakes are higher now, because everybody now knows and sees the numbers. For example, if it's parliament, you can see the numbers that MPs are taking away. So you get to see that that's the kind of election we're going to have. So it's what I'm saying.
With this ugly forecast, is 2026 an election to look forward to, or it's just another ritual that the country should be worried that we are going into this ritual in the way it is?
Elections should never be a ritual. I would want to disabuse you of that word, because you see, election is another step. If you look at a country called Senegal, there was a time Senegal went through the phase we are going through, where political parties were almost hopeless, where elections were meaningless, but it's a phase. Democracy is a journey that we have to walk. We are now at a juncture where democracy is young, okay? It's only less than 20 years ago when since we returned to multi-party political dispensation. Uganda has many young people that have never tested it. So the country needs to continue going through elections. And like I said earlier on, this election is not just about the growing democracy. It's about us extending peace. In any post-conflict society, it's 40 years ago since, we are coming for 40 years, since 1986. But this country is a post-conflict society until we have gotten past the current president. He's leading a post-conflict country. And therefore, elections are very important to extend that peace, okay? That people come, instead of taking up guns and going, they all rally around the elections, they contest. Okay, we get the outcome, may not like the outcome, but at least we say, for next 5 years, let us keep soldiering on. So I think it's not a ritual, it's something we should embrace, it's a phase we must go through. Let us look at the bigger picture. Countries have gone through this and have matured. Our democracy is still very young.
Well, Captain Babu.
Yes, sir.
Do you see any attempt towards sanitizing the national electoral landscape?
Oh yeah, there are many things, government and the
what
people.
What would you write home about?
First of all, let's get one point clear. This country has 43,000 policemen who police this country. if you divide it very carefully, they are slightly over 1,000 per policeman. The question is, can those policemen be able to look after an election? So, in my opinion, the army is brought as somebody to top up the policemen so they can do their job. That is the main reason. Now, all the other security organs come to assist the police to do their work. Now, these allegations I keep on hearing, fine if they're there, it's unfortunate. They are not supposed to be doing that. Their job is to supplement the police to do their work. So I want us to get that point very clear. Our security does not have enough security personnel to overlook, to look after the elections.
Yeah, but traditionally...
No, and I'm getting, just get one point. There are 43,000 policemen. You are not going to expand them. And they are not enough to look after an election. Yeah, what do you do?
Consistently, the army has been implicated in causing violence during elections.
No, how about the propaganda people use also? How many incidents has been recorded where the army has been misbehaving? And how many incidents have, my friend talked about militias, vigilantes? How many of those have we had?
Crime preventers, we had crime preventers, we had the Kakoza Mutale group.
Yes, I've had all that. That's what I'm saying. If there's something wrong, let's get it out. But in terms of statistic, how big is it? So after we've done that, the military, if it was possible, should not be involved. But with the number of policemen you have, you either cook up policemen so that they're enough to look after the elections, or you borrow, or you do something. Something has to be done for the security. Whether it is the army, whether it is the prisons, whether it's putting all of them together to see that we have security during those elections. Now, I brought that point up because there's a lot of propaganda about this. Military. Military comes in whenever normal national police security is not enough. So let's go on that one. I don't like it. Can we have more policemen? Please. Employ them, so that instead of 43,000 policemen, we have doubled the number of our population, which is about 50, make it 100,000 policemen. And then nobody will bring about the military. Let's go on. Now, the people who can change these are our voters. The people of Uganda. They can say, enough is enough, we don't want this. The participant in the elections can do nothing because they are interested. The more problems they cause, the better for them. Some of them during competition believe that by creating chaos, they can rig, they can do all sorts of things. So we need to sit down and look at the electoral system very well, look at the security very well, and be honest and stop being dishonest, because every time, military, no. Why did the military come in? And we can ask the president, why do you bring in the military? A few minutes ago, he's being accused of bringing in the military so they can do wonders for him. Is that true? They've come in because they want to support the present government. Is it true? We need to get facts, not propaganda only. So after we've done that, we now look at the...
No, but you know the issues that have been plaguing our elections. Even the observer reports have always indicated that security has mismanaged the elections.
How? When people are burning police posts, when people are beating judges, when people are beating other people, when people are threatening people not to vote in the villages.
Think the role of security has been tainted by propaganda, right?
Most of it. There are incidents. In fact, the massacre which took place during the other elections, government admitted that people died. And these are the facts we want. People died, and they were shot, and some people were taken to court. The question people are asking, where is the report showing that these people have been prosecuted? So these are the kind of things we need to look at. Facts.
Okay. Captain, as we get into 2026, how is the country walking into this election?
People are fed up. They've got voters fatigue because of a lot of propaganda, social media, and all sorts of things. And certain parties believe that they have the right to do certain things, including the NRM, by the way. I think the whole point is the parties in this, in the question that comes at the end of, have the parties helped this country from 1950 up to now? Have the parties not been the biggest problem during our elections? I think the parties need to go back and
are you shifting blame from
no, I'm not shifting.
From the managers of the election?
Let's go from 1950 up to now. In the 1960s, we were too young. They cut people's banana plantations in this country. They killed people. In 1980, there were all sorts of wars here. There have been wars every time we've had elections. It's not new.
Okay. The role role of the referee should come out significantly here.
20 people will stand there and say, hey, stop demonstrating. 20 people call the Electoral Commission. I think we're exaggerating this thing. The people here, including the parties, the question now I'm going to put to you, and I know you believe in this, have the parties performed well?
Okay. How are the stakeholders faring as we head to 2026? We're looking at the parties, we are looking at security, we are looking at the Electoral Commission, we are looking at observers.
Also citizens. The most important stakeholder in any election are the citizens. And we have to remind the Electoral Commission quite often that we see the most important stakeholder you're serving is the citizens. So how prepared are they and how ready are they? The Electoral Commission, as the electoral umpire, I think they're trying to do their job. They're not presenting a budget. They already had a roadmap. They know what they're going to do. It's not a very, not an old a new Electoral Commission. The chairman has seen it before. So they know what, those are ready. Now, the political parties.
The Electoral Commission is ready?
Yes, okay. They should be ready. Except now, one thing that comes into the mix is the census, and I'll talk about that later. Because after the census, there are certain things the Electoral Commission has to do. But I'll talk about that later. The political parties, how ready are they? I don't know. But when I look at the political parties, the only party that I think has a semblance of getting ready is the NRM.
It is not.
Because at least they are putting together a voters register to prepare for their primaries in order for them to be able to present candidates.
It's also mired in a lot of controversy.
Of course, like I said, political parties in Uganda are very young. And by the way, there will be a time when none of the political parties you are seeing today will exist. Because for me, I think there are many of them that don't tick almost all of them, do not tick the boxes of a political party as it should be in the true sense of the word. The way they've been formed, the reasons they've been formed, I think are different from what we think should be, but that's a story for another day. But many of them in opposition are not ready, because you see, how does a political party get ready? A political party during an election, its role is to present candidates in a democracy that is of a multi-party dispensation. They're supposed to present candidates to us from which we shall vote. So the only party that is making efforts to start a process that would lead to the presentation of candidates is the NRM, never mind whether it's doing it right or wrong. The other opposition political parties have not started, but they have about 13, 14 months only. So I don't know whether they're going to select, and if they're just going to select, then it means there's no democracy in those political parties. It means there are no Democrats. Because you see, political parties are supposed to be governments in waiting. So they're supposed to demonstrate by word and deed that they embrace the values and principles of democracy. One of them is that leaders must be selected through, a process that is democratically organized, which not selected or appointed. So in terms of the political parties, I don't think they're ready. The security institutions, I think they should be getting ready. There's nothing new. The citizens.
There's nothing new for security, you think?
What is new?
It's better management of the election.
You see, the Electoral Commission we have is also kind of one that will grow in expertise and learning. Everything we have in Uganda is young in terms of democracy. I know people have come and rubbished them, but you see, this is a process you have to go through. The Electoral Commission itself, you cannot be... You see, we organize an election in a society that is dishonest. All right? So the Electoral Commission, to organize an election in a society that is dishonest, is a hard task. So they have a lot of challenges they have to grapple with, and many of these they have to learn with the time. So I know they're also patching up, and they should be learning.
Well,
so, yeah.
We'll take a very short break, and when we return, we'll still be asking whether Ugandans ought to look at 2026 with a bit of cautious optimism, or what is now on the horizon speaks to a better election come 2026. Good morning. Welcome back as we continue with the conversation on how prepared the country is with the election looming come 2026. Do we have all the basic ingredients to make this an election like no other, or it's going to be the same routine tradition characterized by the same evils? Well, there's been a lot of propaganda, true. There's been some bit of optimism, true. The ground looks rather dull ahead of 2026. Do you think anything can hype the mood?
First and foremost, you asked a very good question. Are there reports? Is there an audit about the last elections? The question is, you look at the whole of Uganda, all the constituencies, all the elections. What areas had the problem, insecurity problems, the ones people described, as compared to those ones that did not have that insecurity? Did the whole of Uganda have that problem, or certain areas? That's point number one. Point number two, if there are indisciplined soldiers and policemen, and you have rogue officers.
Okay, let me first take you back to point number one. Were there areas that were problematic?
Yes.
Have we critically analyzed why they were problematic and how better they can be managed?
Very good point. That is what I want us to concentrate on. Find a solution to those problems. Those challenges are going to be there in an election, and especially in this part of the world. So the next question is, those soldiers who are indisciplined, those soldiers who are misusing their power, how do we deal with them? Is it true, because there are allegations, that they are not tried? Are they tried? And therefore the government should be asked to answer those questions. I want us to be very, very careful. I hear all sorts of things, accusations. Some parties, when they go in these elections, says, you elect us because we want to remove that one. We want to be in their shoes. Not removing nicely in terms of elections. They are going to come, they want to remove the whole government. Now, when you come, and my friend made a very good point, that when a party comes on the basis of a fragile foundation, they are bound to have a little bit of a problem. What I'm saying, anything that went wrong last time, let's try and put it right. And we're asking government, because the government is being accused, they better come out and answer some of these accusations. And if possible, let's have a small dialogue before these elections, so that we can have a status quo. When I brought that point up in one of the meetings, he says, yes, but we did. When we have a registration of the president, we had a meeting. We said people should come, register, and they go back home. Immediately after the elections, immediately after registration, some of them started saying, no, they don't want to go home. They were forcing their way to go somewhere else. Others removed their shoes. So these kind of gimmicks and ploys to try and get sympathy is not the answer. So we go back to the discipline. How do we want these elections to be all right? Therefore, we must be disciplined enough to respect the regulations we have agreed, to respect the agreements we've had in a meeting. If we say we shall do this kind of thing, we come together and make sure we do it. But if you start by vilifying the Electoral Commission, even before the elections, you vilify the security organizations, you vilify everybody, you get very little sympathy. So we need to sit down. The Electoral Commission is ours. These are our problems. You put them down. Security, these are our problems. You put them down. You then go to the population. our population is not only election education we are going to have, we should have a little bit of civic education, starting a little bit earlier. We only have voters' education, by the way. We never have a civic education. How they are supposed to behave. They should not so allow people to whip them up so that they can riot. They should know why they are rioting. I don't mind people rioting if what they are rioting for is a fact. But if you are writing on a basis of falsehood, it doesn't work.
Henry, do you see any effort to correct the irregularities that have always plagued national elections?
Right, so I do know that the Electoral Commission is making efforts to seek capacity, technical support, whatever it is. I know they have approached players in the global north that can help them improve their way of delivering a better election. That is happening. But what we don't see changing, and this is of concern, and Captain Babu mentions it, is the civic education that the voters who are citizens who are the biggest stakeholder in this election have to be educated. But the other one is about the transparency that is needed. You see, the Electoral Commission, one of the areas that have been complained about is the lack of transparency in the way they transmit results, tally count them. So I think we need to have more transparency there. We need to have issues around the voters' roll, that the Ugandans, the young people that turn 18, the cut-off date is extended so that as many Ugandans as possible, young people, Uganda's young country, are able to vote. But most importantly is the issue of the role of security you talk about. I think the citizens, whether they are candidates or voters, they should exercise and enjoy their political rights. The right to contest, the right to campaign, the right to attend campaign events. This should be enjoyed. A situation where the security operatives take over the responsibility of determining who accesses which district to campaign from, especially those that campaign for presidents. I think this can be done better. So that's an area we need to improve upon, because these are some of the areas that propagate, precipitate violence.
Well, initially, there was a lot of hype surrounding electoral reforms that had been promised by Honorable Norbert Mao, the Minister for Justice. They hit a snag. Does this have a bearing on the 2026 elections?
I think, you see, it will have a bearing. Because you see, in football, we know that you don't want to change a winning formula. And if it's not broken, you don't have to fix it. So the Honorable Norbert Mao comes into government, guns blazing with reforms, that, mantra of reforms. But what are you reforming? It's already working. It's been working since 2006, when we went back to multi-party politics. What do you want to reform? So if I was in power, I'm a student of political science, I would say, why reform it? And I could understand that the appetite to reform this is not there. So I think the appetite is to kind of consolidate that which has worked and ensure that elections are won with the veneer of legitimacy. So we don't expect any reforms, because the appetite for doing that has not been demonstrated by the government in power. Maybe reforms, but this does not mean we should stop talking about reforms. We need reforms.
Okay, if there are no reforms, what kind of better do you want? What would improve the quality of the election? So if there are no, there isn't anything on paper, there's no blueprint on reforms.
So this has now to rest on the quality and the caliber of the men and women in that electoral management body. The Honorable Francis Babu already said that whether they've been constituted independently, like we saw in Kenya, or they've been appointed, like the case is in Uganda, the independence of the Electoral Commission remains the subject of debate. So it now boils down to the men and women. Just because you've been appointed by this man doesn't mean that you should dance to his tunes. There are things you should do to serve your country. And therefore, it boils down to the Electoral Commission. There are issues of transparency. There are issues of how many stakeholders do you consult? Do you open up and listen? and hear the views of the different stakeholders that have a stake in this election? Okay, if you have, are you making an effort to be seen to be working on improving some of these? So the Electoral Commission has to do certain things there, but also the political parties, the political players. You know, when there is violence, which has been a permanent fixture in the elections of Uganda, and violence that has kept away most of the women from participating and exercising their right to vote, what are political party leaders doing in terms of guiding their leaders? Okay, so I mean, their supporters and so on. So I think political parties also have to play a role, have a role to play. The security forces have to understand that first they were Ugandans before they got to be appointed to align.
Between now and the time of elections, what can be fixed?
Between now and the time before election, first of all, there cannot be any legislative reform that can be fixed. What can be fixed is administrative. And because it is administrative, it then rests on the rails of the electoral management.
Yeah,
body.
but the Electoral Commission is already suffering legitimate questions, questions of legitimacy and reputation. Do you think this is the Electoral Commission that Ugandans should trust?
So it is the Electoral Commission itself to kind of build the trust in the citizenry by the way they're doing things. Like I said, I know internally colleagues we work with in the Global North have told us that they've been consulted by the Electoral Commission to help them, you know, with ideas on how to improve it. So I can tell you for sure that the Electoral Commission we have now is making efforts, okay, to make sure that they deliver a better election. Because the only thing we can, only changes we can fix now are administrative, and that rests with the electoral management.
Captain Babu, an Electoral Commission that has already been bruised in terms of legitimacy and reputation, do you think they can deliver a credible result that would convince Ugandans that there was a free and fair electoral exercise?
You know, Ugandans have to, especially people who are in the political class, have to learn to be careful with their mouth. To vilify somebody who has done nothing yet is very unfortunate. You see, what does the Electoral Commission do? There are certain things they do. Point out that this area, the Electoral Commission is not doing well. They have not even started, and you are already vilifying them on personality. Now, misinformation about people is wrong. A man or a woman builds their career, and then you stand somewhere, and because you've got a loose mouth, you start saying some very unfortunate things about somebody. Now, we need to get cultural discipline. We don't have discipline. And some of the things we say are really not good. So, our political parties have not also done us the favor. They are supposed to give us their program. They are supposed to give us good leaders. They are the ones to go out there and say, this man or this woman can be a good leader. And that good leader must fit the bill of being honorable. Now, if you keep on every time insinuating, saying things against other people, and insulting, because I've seen there's a lot of insulting. Recently, they even insulted our king. These things are becoming unfortunate, and they're becoming part of our bad manners, and we need to change them. So, they have done nothing yet.
No, but on a number of occasions,
I'm coming.
Even courts have faulted the Electoral Commission for...
No, that is bound to be there when there are mistakes.
Yes.
No, everybody does mistakes. You give me somebody who's an angel among all these people, who cannot go to court. If Electoral Commission has made a mistake and they are taken to court, they answer. They give you their version of the story. Now, those are facts. You can't do anything about that. But for you to use a mistake which was made by an institution to an individual, and you abuse the chairman, that's very unfortunate.
No, I think they're not going for the chairman.
No, they do.
They do.
No. They have been insulting him. They've been, and I know who has been doing it. Now, political parties, you asked me a question, what should we do? Political parties must want to make Electoral Commission work because it is their benefit. Number two, we need to have a mindset change that no matter who you elect and put there, there's bound to be people to complain. But they must complain with facts. Now, there's a lot of greed. My British friend uses a proverb, action speaks louder than words. Too much words. Let's see some action. If the Electoral Commission has made a mistake, point it out. I'm not saying you shouldn't. And they also make mistakes. Now, we need the people who have got the credibility. We need a little bit of politeness. We don't need to be there everywhere to vilify ourselves. The man you are vilifying, who is a lawyer, very senior justice of the High Court, he has built his reputation. And for you, because of your greed, you want to smear him with all sorts of things. Is wrong. And I'm not going to accept this. There's a lot of abuse, a lot of vilifying people, which is wrong. And if you have realized we don't vilify anybody, you've got to have facts before you say something bad about people. I've heard about...
Yeah, but the criticism is normally premised on judgments and observations.
No, recently when they appointed them, a lot of people said some nasty things about some of the people who elected on that board. Therefore, I want to ask us...
So that affects their credibility?
No, that's propaganda. You are basing your argument on propaganda. You brought a very good point, that Electoral Commission has been taken to court. They should be taken to court if they flaw. Definitely. Within the law. But for you to suddenly, no, I don't like that man because he was appointed by the president. That's the law. I don't like that judge because he was appointed by the president. That's the law. I want us to become a little bit fair. Our brothers and sisters who are appointed or elected in this board, give them credit, give them due until he has made a mistake. Then you can use the mistake to judge him. Let me finish with this. I want us to have action. The Electoral Commission has said we are preparing the roadmap. They have gone to Parliament. We need this kind of money. We want to have elections in all these places. We are going to have more constituencies. The census will come. They tell us which constituencies are now too big, which must be divided. All this will be done by Electoral Commission. The point is then the time will come out.
These demarcations are going to be late.
No, why? How long does it take? A demarcation doesn't take more than a day or 2 days. What you need to do is the facts about the demarcation. If you have more than 140,000, I think, or 200 something, you divide it. But what I'm trying to say here is let's give them a benefit of no doubt. Let's hope that this 2026 will be a better year and people will have their elections correctly done. And let's ask the participants, including political parties, that they should change their approach to the Electoral Commission, and government itself should not misuse the Electoral Commission, if there is such a thing.
Well, as we get out of here, you're a key stakeholder in every election, Henry.
Yeah.
Have you had any input, for instance, in the roadmap, or have you been able to engage the Electoral Commission on a number of areas that require improvement?
Yeah, so it's difficult. So for us as civil society organizations, we have to first of all go look for the money, because there's nothing you can do anywhere in this world without money, and then come and start engaging. However, we have been engaging with the Electoral Commission. It was not clear before they were reappointed whether or not they would be appointed again. So we lost about 3 months because the Constitution was providing that if the president was to reappoint, he should do so, should express intent to do so 3 months prior to the expiry of the term. So there was some degree of uncertainty. But we've engaged with them. We have shared the reports, our reports with them. So they know what to improve. But like I said, in 15 months, there's not much you can do now. The only improvement that there can be are administrative in nature. But let me talk about the census. The census. Yes. You know, we petitioned the court at the beginning of this year, contesting the legality of some of the positions, of the constituency positions that were created in Parliament. But one of them is the fact that the Constitution provides that 12 days after publishing the census, the Electoral Commission shall, it's not will, shall gazette in new constituencies based on a mathematical formula So the Electoral Commission, based on this census now that is coming this next month, they should be able to propose a formula, maybe 200,000 voters, 200,000 citizens make a constituency, and take it to Parliament for approval, and then be able to demarcate constituencies. A situation where it's an opportunity now, a situation where you have a constituency with 50,000 voters, 10,000 voters should not arise. A situation where you have 1 million voters in one constituency, as it is in Nansana municipality, that should change. So we believe that the Electoral Commission will take heed, because this has to happen 12 months after the publishing of the consensus.
Well, we need to get out of here. I must really thank you. I know next time Henry comes here, he will be telling us about campaign financing and how central money plays within elections. Captain Babu, what a pleasure hosting you this morning.
Thank you very much.
Plus all our viewers out there, have a lovely